Agile is a set of ideals and principles that serve as our North Star. Kanban and Scrum are frameworks that help teams adhere to the Agile principles to get stuff done. Hi all, this is Upasana from Edureka, and in this session we are going to talk about Scrum, Kanban, what are the similarities, and most importantly, what are the differences between the two. Now, I'd like to remind you that it's easy to point out the differences between Scrum and Kanban, but that's just at the surface level. While the practices differ, the principles are largely the same. Both frameworks will help you build better products with fewer headaches. With that said, let's discuss our agenda for today. So we're going to start out with a little introduction to Scrum, followed by the same for Kanban. Then we're going to discuss how are both of them similar. Then obviously the next most logical approach, we are going to discuss how are both of them different. Then we are going to have the meat and potatoes of this session, which is Scrum versus Kanban. And finally, which one is best for you and your company. Also, kindly take up this time to go ahead and hit the subscribe button to never miss an update from the Edureka YouTube channel. So without much ado, let's get started. So what is Scrum? Now with Scrum, you plan just enough to start out with your project. Then you build your product with the minimal set of features. Then you test that particular product. And finally, you review that minimalistic product that you've just created. At the end of this iteration, you have a potentially shippable product. Now, then you have the same thing over and over and over and over again, till finally you have a product that suits the market needs and yours. Now, with Scrum, your team promises to ship some valuable increment of work by the end of each sprint. It is built on empiricism, which basically means focusing on small increments of work that will help you learn from your customers and better inform what you do next. It can address complex adaptive problems while productively and creatively delivering products of the highest possible value. Each sprint is time-boxed at the most of 1 month. Now, Scrum basically means working in a fact-based, experience-based, and evidence-based manner. It implements a process of empiricism where you have transparency, inspection, and adaptation so that the progress of your product is based on observations of reality and not fictitious plans. Now, Scrum is used in a project where the requirement is rapidly changing. This is basically to address the unpredictable nature of obstacles that you face during software development. It works on a self-organizing cross-functional team principle and usually deals with the fact that conditions are likely to change quickly or most of the time, the way it cannot be known in the start of the project. In Scrum, low-level requirements are only defined at the beginning of time. In this practice, changes and optimizations of products, requirements, and processes are an integral part of the project. Moving on, let's discuss its contemporary Kanban. So what is Kanban? Now, Kanban in Japanese literally means a billboard. It was developed by Toyota in the 1950s for manufacturing, but now it's been used in construction, manufacture, and software development as well. Now, ideally, in the most basic form, your Kanban board looks something like this. You have your backlogs, which are similar to the backlogs that you have in Scrum. Then you have your to-do column, where you have your pending tasks. Then you have your work in progress column, and finally the work that you've completed, keeping visualization and transparency as the main focus of your project development phase. Now, like Scrum, Kanban encourages work to be broken down into manageable chunks and uses this board to visualize work as it progresses through the workflow. Kanban limits the amount of work allowed in any one condition, just the way Scrum limits time. Now, Kanban is designed to meet minimal resistance, so it allows continuous, small, incremental, and evolutionary changes to the current process. It also helps to achieve improvements regarding throughput, lead time, and quality. Kanban boards allow visual management of software development project work. This helps team members to see work in progress, and it also helps them to understand complex information like processes and risks associated to complete the work on time. These boards prove effective as they help team members to become more productive while reducing the amount of workload stress that project managers and team members feel during a project lifecycle. Now, Kanban software development method should be implemented if the team has a process which works fine but still needs some optimization. Kanban process allows them to gradually improve all their tried and tested processes. Now let's discuss how are both of these similar to each other. Now, how are Scrum and Kanban the same? Now, both Scrum and Kanban allow for large and complex tasks to be broken down and completed efficiently. Both place a high value on continual improvement, optimization of work, and the processes. And both of them share a very similar focus on highly visible workflow that keeps all the team members in the loop on work in progress and what's to come. Now let's discuss how are both of them different. Now, as alluded to before, there are a number of differences in both of these philosophies and behind the practical application of Scrum and Kanban. While the individual differences are many, they can be grouped mostly into three buckets: scheduling, iteration, and cadence. Now, Scrum processes place heavy emphasis on schedule. The Scrum team is provided with a prioritized list of story points that need to be completed to deliver a shippable product. The team must decide how many of the points they feel can be completed within one sprint, and anything outside the scope they commit to must wait for the next sprint. Optimally, an efficient Scrum team will quickly learn the capabilities over the course of several sprints, and the estimates which improve to be optimized as time goes on. Then, every 2 weeks or however long their sprint is, the team produces a shippable product which carries out a retrospective to discuss the optimizing of the process and moves on to the next sprint. This iterative process is designed to allow for accurate estimations of workflow and effective management of multiple projects. On a Kanban team, there are no such required time boxes or iterations. While Kanban method is iterative in nature, the continual improvement is expected to occur in an evolutionary fashion as work is continually completed. The limitations based on various conditions in the workflow will be regulated early in a team's or an organization's use of Kanban until an optimal set of limits is arrived at to keep the flow steady and efficient. With that, let's move on to something you all have been waiting for: Scrum versus Kanban. In this module, I've listed out 7 key differences between Scrum and Kanban. Now, even though both Scrum and Kanban strive to increase quality along with productivity and bring efficiency to the organization, there are a few differences between how they function. So first of all, roles and responsibilities. Now, in Scrum, every individual has a set role and responsibilities. They're assigned the roles of a Scrum Master, product owner, team members, or stakeholders, where every role has its fixed responsibility and no one ideally should play more than one role at a time. Kanban does not have set roles and it provides complete flexibility in terms of individual responsibilities. In the absence of roles, individuals are assigned work according to the specialization or preference. Next, you have teams and commitment. Now, Scrum teams are required to commit to a specific amount of work, and it is important to identify all the tasks, prioritize them, and estimate the number of hours each task will take or the number of story points that is assigned to it. A commitment should then be provided based on this estimate. Now, commitment is optional for teams following Kanban. Thus, teams work at their natural speed. Sometimes they may deliver more, while other times they may deliver less in the same duration. Next, we have addressing challenges. Now, since Scrum demands commitment, any obstacles or challenges that arise need to be immediately dealt with. The earlier it is done, the better they can retain their momentum and deliver accordingly. The work in progress in Kanban is completely transparent, and so the teams can spot obstacles and bottlenecks pretty easily. They are thus able to avoid such obstacles or challenges and ensure a smooth flow of work. Types of teams. Now, in Scrum, most of you might already know this, cross-functional teams are necessary as they are better able to deal with any disruption that may cause a bottleneck in the process. However, cross-functional teams do not mean that everybody is equipped to perform every task. It means that certain members of different teams should be equipped with various other important skills and utilize them as and when required. Instead of cross-functional teams, Kanban encourages specialized teams as the workflow is intended to be used by any and all the teams involved in the project. Next, you have focus of the team. Now, in Scrum, all the teams focus to collaborate and complete the tasks to produce something of a greater value. Now, Scrum encourages conducting daily Scrums or stand-up meetings to educate every member of each other's responsibilities. They work together and help each other to achieve their team goals. In Kanban, teams strive to achieve goals and reduce the amount of time to complete the entire process. A reduction in the average time cycle is one of the main indicators of success here. Next, we have iterations. Since Scrum places heavy emphasis on its schedules, new items cannot be added to ongoing iterations. Only when the current sprint is completed can they take on another sprint. Gradually, teams get adept at estimating and scheduling sprints accordingly. In Kanban, it is more iterative in nature due to the lack of time frames, and so new items can be continually added whenever additional capacity is available. When any task moves from in-progress stage to completed stage, a new task can take its place immediately. Next and finally, we have ownership. Now, a sprint backlog is owned only by one team at a time as Scrum encourages cross-functional teams. Each team has all the necessary skills to successfully complete all the tasks during the sprint. Now, Kanban boards have no ownership. They can be shared by multiple teams as everybody is dedicated to their own relevant tasks. Now, with that, I come to the end of all the 7 key differences. Now, let's discuss which one should you choose. Now, before you reach a conclusion, let me tell you that many large companies have adopted either Scrum or Kanban for project management. Teams in companies like Apple, Google, Amazon are using Scrum, whereas some teams like Pixar, Zara, and Spotify have gone for Kanban. Now, it is clear that both Scrum and Kanban have their merits, and it should be noted that Kanban usually works well with smaller projects, whereas Scrum is much more beneficial for large long-term projects. It depends on the team which framework it believes in and will be best suited for achieving the end goal. It is clear that both Scrum and Kanban have their own merits and demerits. Many Scrum teams use Kanban additionally as a visual process and project management tool. Now, some teams prefer to use only Scrum because of its prescriptive nature, which leads to lesser ambiguity. But there are many that have adopted select principles of Kanban that are useful in adding an extra layer of visibility to their projects. When making a choice, an individual distinction doesn't always have to be an answer. Because in my opinion, both the frameworks are equally awesome and Scrum and Kanban work best hand in hand. With that, I'm closing my session. Thank you and have a great day ahead.
I hope you have enjoyed listening to this video. Please be kind enough to like it, and you can comment any of your doubts and queries, and we will reply them at the earliest. Do look out for more videos in our playlist and subscribe to Edureka channel to learn more. Happy learning!